Music on here too.
Hey y'all, welcome. This is Black Women Leave America podcast, the live edition. I'm your host, Ava Laura, and this is my amazing co-host,
Jessica, who can't send a calendar invite these days, but that's okay. We're going to roll with it anyway.
Listen, we are real women here, okay? Real women with real problems and real scenarios.
Right.
Happy to be here today. We have two amazing guests. So one of our guests has been in and out of the country. I look forward for you all hearing her story because she's actually traveling with a 4-year-old now. So a lot of you ladies who are like, I can't do it because I have kids, you get to hear her story. And then we have another guest who's just like, listen, I want to leave. I'm ready. But we'll talk about what are some of the things that are kind of holding her back. Because how many of you all can relate to that, right? Like you watch these podcasts, you're listening to these women, you're inspired, you're motivated, and you're like, but I can't leave. Right. So you get to hear from her as well. So I'm really excited to introduce you to our guests. And
yeah, so
Shady,
let's go with our first guest.
Oh, and while they're coming on, listen, right now we are 10 people away from 500 subscribers. So we need you all. Yes, we need you all to go ahead and subscribe, share, comment, like, sponsor. If you want to continue, right, hearing from these amazing women and their stories, and being inspired and learning how you can really have options too, right? Because this is not all about leaving America. I see some of the comments and people are like, oh, people are y'all look kind of nasty up in the comments sometimes. Like, this is a positive show, right? Like, this is actually really a positive show. Like, we are highlighting Black women's stories and how we have changed the narrative and how we're deciding to live life on our terms, right?
Right.
And understanding that we have options. And if we want to leave, we can leave. If we want to stay, we can stay. But ultimately, it's about, what am I going to do that's best for me and my family? How am I going to live my best life? How am I going to live life on my terms?
Absolutely.
That's it. So if you don't want to leave America, you don't have to leave. Ain't nobody telling you to leave. Listen, if you don't like the name of our podcast, that is okay. You don't need to like the name of our podcast. This is not for you.
Somebody said they don't like the name of our podcast.
They are saying so many nasty things up in the comments. I'm just like, what is wrong with you people? I mean, this is what happens when people get behind it. We call them the keyboard thugs. They just get behind the keyboard. People don't know who they are. They just feel like they can say whatever they want. Listen, taking their problems out on us. I didn't do nothing to you. Jessica didn't do nothing to you. Our guest didn't do nothing to you. So if you don't like it, we don't need you to comment. We don't need you to say nothing. Go somewhere else. Take that negativity somewhere else. This is all love. This is all positivity. All right.
Absolutely.
We are all about supporting people and their freedom to live their life on their terms. That's all this is about. Take that hate somewhere else.
Ooh, a message from the amazing Ava Laura. I need to put our sound effects in here because that needed a hand clap. But yeah, but you know what? What's funny is that this podcast is all of that. It is all of that light, and maybe that's why. And we need to be even more relevant, right? Even more shareable. So make sure you share us out because there is obviously a lot of people that need to change their mindset. They need wellness. They need wholeness, and they need to heal. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring up our guests. You want to do introductions or should we just have them introduce themselves?
Have them come on here and introduce themselves.
Yay. Our first person up is Jay. Jay comes all the way from Jay. I don't know where you come from. So you got to introduce that girl.
It's all good. It's all good. I'm Jay, y'all. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee.
Okay.
Born and raised, lived in Houston for almost a decade, but here back in Memphis where I was born and raised again. So I have a daughter, 15 years old. She's my everything. But I own Ellison Consulting, which is a consulting and coaching company. And what we do is that we help women, as well as we're kind of moving into working with owners of businesses that have skilled trades, solopreneurs who automate their workflows with HoneyBook. And we also help them with creating curriculum for their training programs and things like that when they have new hires coming on. I've been in business for almost 4 years. With this business, it's my second business. And yes, I am definitely, it's not even thinking about, it's definitely looking to leave the United States of America.
And it sounds like you're set up business-wise, like that can go wherever you go.
That digitized everything.
Awesome. So next, I'm sorry. Next up, we have Chai. Did I say it right? Chai slide. Chai. Who the hell's from? Now I know where you at.
You're muted.
From Mexico. She comes all the way to us from the great Mexico country, Mexico. Almost a state. I'm just on the ball this morning.
I think Jessica had too much coffee today.
Right. We're gonna need Ava Laura to send you some Reiki, girl.
Oh Lord, but child, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, all. My name is Cha Jones. I live in Mexico. I'm not currently at this very moment in Mexico. I'm somewhere cold. But yes, I've lived in South Korea for 3.5 years, and I've lived in Mexico for going on 3 years, and I've traveled to over 27 countries. Wow. I currently have a 4-year-old, so he travels with me now. So he's been to 4 different countries, 3 different continents, and I'm an intercultural and expat consultant. So I work with Fortune 500 companies that are sending clients abroad, that do their training to help them be culturally aware. I also work with individual clients who are trying to figure out where they're going. I do astrocartography. I can't even talk today. I'm picking up Jessica's vibes. Which basically shows you, based off of astrology, where you should live and what energies are best for you. So I do that as well. And I also have a podcast called Life's a Vacay, where I just talk about how I'm living a soft life. So that's me.
Well, you let me know if you want a jingle, because I got one going in my head right now. Go ahead, Ava Laura. That first question.
No, I love it. I love it. This is a one. So let me just say this. Like, if we do get comments coming in, we'll definitely mention those as well. So you all who are watching live or watching even on the replay, feel free to ask your questions. We will certainly ask our guests. I think this is a great mix because these are questions that we get a lot from women. So the fact that both of you have children, right? Because it seems easy to do when you don't have kids. You can just pick up and leave, right? When you don't have kids, when you're not married, no attachments. But when you do have children, there's a lot more that you do have to consider, right? So child, for you, so I know you were living abroad first, you came back, and then you got pregnant, had a child, and then went back. How has it been, when you were, single, you were out there traveling by yourself versus now traveling with a 4-year-old?
When you're single, you can, live life impromptu, right? You just get up and be like, you know what? I think I'm gonna be in Malaysia today. And you just go, right? When you have a child, you have to obviously plan more. When he was much smaller, I had to have all the things, the stroller, bassinet, all the different things that you have to carry with a child, milk, all that. So now it's not so much more planning. I can be a little bit more impromptu. However, there's just things you have to just be considerate of. Like, I can, look at my surroundings and be, like, that's not safe or whatever. But now he's 4, he can walk, and he thinks, oh, they're friendly. No, we don't know them. So he's like, hey,
straight to danger.
No, I'm like, no, we can't just make everybody our friend. So I have to not only think about me and my safety, but I also have to think about his safety and where he's at and comparison to where I'm at. And is he following the rules? And does he even understand the unspoken rules? Like, there's things I can do and try to understand, like, okay, I don't speak this language, but, you know, I'm functional. And he don't really care. He just be like,
of course, he's bored.
This is not, so it's not the same at all. You can be fancy free when you're single. You have to have things in perspective when you're not.
So what are those things, and what do you feel like is different compared to the US, right? Because in the US, we still have, you know, obviously the same types of security measures and things to that effect. But I think outside of the US, you know, now I'm interested to know if he's taking some of his like US and American ways and thinking that that still translates into other places. And do you have to modify that in other places that you go?
Well, the good thing is he doesn't have any American ways. He left when he was 18 months. So he's lived most of his life abroad, right? So actually, I think it's a disadvantage when he comes back. So for instance, we lived in Virginia. We lived in Alexandria before we left. We went to Mexico. He's been pretty much raised in Mexico. He'll come back and like, I have a friend who lives in DC, so we'll stay at her house. And then in the summer, he's like playing with the little kids, and they like, for lack of better word, they real ratchet. And they'll say stuff. And I remember a little girl told him this summer, because he was like, oh, the birds, like he's really into birds. So if a flock of birds come, he's in heaven. So he's chasing pigeons. And it's like, the birds, look, mommy, the birds. And I'm like, oh my God. So the little girl was like, what's wrong with you? And he was like, come on, bird. And he took off, and she was like, it's a bird. What's your problem? And she said it with her whole DC-ness, right? It's a bird. And he was like, bye. And she was like, how old are you? And he was like, he's free, right? He don't have any kind of understanding of boundaries. And this is, you know, he's not trying to be grown. She was 4.
He hasn't had to grow up hard. Okay.
He know the latest rap song. He don't know any rap songs. Like he's not familiar with any of that. So he doesn't have any of the Americanness that limits a child, right? He is not concerned about safety and security, because all he knows is I'm free. I really don't have any boundaries other than my mother said stop, I need to stop. And that's still like, he'd be like, what? I'm illegal. I don't do that either. So those type of things. But as far as like, he's just real green. And that's when I really realized, oh my God, like you wouldn't even make it in America, because all the toughness that you need to have, especially being in Black America, right? Like a city like DC, like he's not about that life. And, you know, she was just like, who are you? Like, what planet you from that you don't understand? Like, you should be doing this, or why you ain't kiss me right now? You know, she was like all up on him, and he was like, little girl, bye. And I'm like, oh my God. And so that was the first time. The second time he was on his scooter, and the little boy, he was doing a lot, and he was a tiny little boy. So I was like, how old is he? He's like doing all these flips and stuff. And my son was just like, with one foot scooting like this, because he didn't know what a scooter was. And at the time he was still 3. And so he was just like, he said, oh, that's a good job. Good job. Go ahead and do that. But he was like, I ain't competing, because I'm do me. And I thought, like, I learned so much from his demeanor and how he carries himself and how he moves through life. That's amazing, because I'm like, I wish I was that confident. You know, I wish that I just was like, I give 2 F's about that, right? So those are the things I think I have observed in him, being able to have had the first part of his life where he started interacting with people, be abroad versus.
I love it. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because we say we want better for our children, right? Than we have for ourselves. Like every parent wants that. And, you know, to have a carefree life, because that's real. Now, what I don't want to do is stereotype, right? And say like every American or every Black American, right, has a hard life, or right, has hardship. But the reality is that, you know, we've all seen it, right? And there does have to be some level of toughness, especially in the inner cities. No matter where you come from, no matter who you are, it's different in the suburbs, it's different, you in a rural area, countryside, or things like that. But in the cities, there does have to be like a certain a level of hardness and a certain level of you don't function well when you're that naivete, right? Where you're so innocent. Children are losing their innocence so fast now. They're exposed to so much more than even we were exposed to when we were growing up. So to be able to really be free, right? And to really be a child and not have to take on, the worries of the world at such a young age. Like adults don't want to be adulting. Why are we trying to put that on kids?
Right.
So I think that's a beautiful thing that you were able to create that. And it's not to say that you can't create it here, right, in the US. But anything that's going to help you to do it a little easier, I think is a beautiful thing. So I love that for you. I love the lessons that you're learning through him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do have one follow-up question, and then I'll move to Jay. Around what do you think the differences were, right? And tell us a little bit about that. What did he actually grow up in? What was the environment like?
So we lived in a small Pravada, where there was only like 5 units and it was gated or whatever. And he was the only child, right? So I think everybody else didn't have any children. There was an older Black man that lived next door to me, and on the corner was like she was Argentinian, but she had lived in America for like 40 years. And so but I had American friends. I had a really close friend who was from Denver, who had a little girl that was the same age. I had one of my friends who I knew in Korea, had also lived in Mexico at the time, and she had 4 boys. And so he grew up with other American children. He went to school across the street, and it was a little private school when he turned 3. And so he was one of 2 Americans, because the other little girl that he grew up with, she also went to the school. But for the most part, he grew up with a lot of older Black people. So
He an old soul.
Yeah, he's an old soul, but like, so his day consisted of, he woke up, he got up in the morning, he went downstairs on his own, and there was a sliding door because the setup, it was a townhouse. So he opened the sliding door. He had his own trampoline, all the little toys outside. He got on the trampoline. He would go in and out of the house on his own, right? There was nothing, that everything protected him. It was the walled area, and he basically had free reign of, he had a bathroom, he had all the little things he needed to have. And then when he went to the park, he played with all the other little children or whatever. And communication was never really an issue, because children communicate whether you speak the language or not. But the sense of freedom that he had, where nobody had to worry about, are there going to be gunshots somewhere? The Merida where we live is very secure. There are police always. There are cameras on every corner. So there's no issue of, am I safe? I am. Yeah. And the great thing that he was raised with is, I'm free. I don't have any boundaries. I'm not breaking the laws, but I don't have any boundaries. I just wake up, I do me. And I can live my life without worrying about whether somebody breaking in the house. These days I've gone to sleep and my door wasn't locked. And now I woke up and was like, I don't like the door. But the screen door in the back was always open because he would go out there to play. So, I mean, that's just the freedom he had. I can't really explain. It just, he doesn't have a sense of, I'm fearing you because you about to jack us. I'm fearing you because you're doing drive-by shootings. There's no gunshots. The closest he got was firecrackers popping off like all day, night when they have a party. So,
right. I feel like a lot of that kind of translated through you too, though. I think he felt a sense of calm from his mother and knowing that he was safe and all that good stuff, where I feel like a lot of that translates here, where we feel like, oh my gosh, be careful, don't go too far, don't, all of those things I think our kids pick up on. So he grew up in a place where it was just like ease and flow. So that really speaks to the mindset of the parent, and also how secure and how safe the parent feels as well, and how that translates to a child. I can go on that all day, but let's go ahead and go to Jay. Jay, you are thinking about leaving America. What are some of the reasons that you would like to leave, and why now?
It's a great question. I was talking to my best friend the other day, and we were talking about, like, she's a single mom as well. And we were talking about how it seems like here in America, it's gotten to the place where you wake up in the morning thinking about, okay, we got to make money today. Like, it's time to make money today. And it's just, you're always on. Like, you're always on here. And I'm one of those type of people, like, I like rest. And I love rest, but I am a workaholic. But I always think about, how the work that you have to do, because you work in order to relax. And I don't want to be in my 60s, 70s saying, okay, now I'm too young for that. I just turned 40 this year. Like, no. So I feel like, number one, my daughter she's growing up, and I want her to feel like in a safe space. She goes to a great high school, but it is definitely challenges in the city where I live. I think the country too. It's just too, like she was saying, Avalora was saying about how children are growing up and the innocence is being taken away. I feel like too that Black women, we're pushed to survive. Like, I'm over it. I think the systemic issues that we have here hasn't been addressed. America still has a lot of sins they haven't fessed up to. And I think for women, especially for Black women, because of the emotional here, there, and everywhere, I just like, where can we go in the world where we, first of all, feel like human, feel like in our body on a regular basis instead of just vacationing and coming back to the same foolishness. Like, I want to go somewhere where I feel like I'm in my body all the time and not hustling and trying to push, but rather work as I want to and desire to, and feel at ease with doing that as a woman. So, yeah.
Ooh, you said a mouthful. You said a whole mouthful, and I think any Black woman watching this can relate to what you're saying. On so many different levels. It's so interesting. Like, I did a little mini experiment with myself this year in not hustling, and I'm not a hustle anyway. I'm a Pisces. I like to sleep. I like to dream. I like to rest. The hustle does not come natural to me. I have to force myself to hustle. I live in ease and flow. But this year I said, you know what? I am going to literally just take it easy. I'm not going to go after a lot of stuff, right? I'm going to see what naturally I manifest. It just kind of comes to me, and I'm going to just live off of that. I'm not going to set money goals, right? I'm not going to do all of those things. I'm not going to have 1,000,001 launches. I'm not doing none of that. I don't feel like it. I don't want to. And I really focused on me, and I focused on family, and I've made less money, but I've made enough money. Like, I'm good. I'm not struggling. I'm not hurting. I'm not worried about paying my bills. And it just goes to show that you don't have to do all of that, in order to maintain. Now, it does help that I have an amazing partner, right, who picks up, right, the gaps. And so I know it's different if you're doing it on your own.
Right.
But it's just, it's been a beautiful thing. Like, I haven't had to, I've been able to rest. And I know that that's so much harder to do here in America than it is somewhere else, where we are worried about what we got to pay, our rent, our mortgage, or whatever, our lifestyle, we're looking at getting a new car. I'm like, yo, these car prices, especially with this insurance now, like, oh my God, these interest rates is ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Like, I understand. I'm like, I know why nobody wants to be here anymore. This is really ridiculous. How much am I paying for this car and why? And I'm gonna drive it off the lot and it's going to depreciate and it's not going to even be worth what I'm paying for it. So you start thinking about all of these things and it all starts adding up, and it can get overwhelming and it can get depressing because you do start looking at how much you're putting out every month versus how much is coming in and how hard you have to work to bring in what you're bringing in.
I think so too. One of the things that you brought up, I thought that was really good was, I have a partner that allows me to kind of be in that. And I think that that's the beautiful thing. Like for some women that have a partner allows them. And this is how my mind is kind of wrapped up. It's like, okay, I ain't got no sugar daddy, right? Ain't no man up in this house, but me and my kid. It's just me and my 2 girls, and then we have a golden doodle. She's a mini, so she bad. But one of the things too that I always say that in order for me to work and work in joy is that I have a plan. I have to have a plan. So if I am working my butt off in so many ways, what am I working towards? Because it can't be just working and hustling and all the time. Some women don't have an end goal. Because I always ask, like, I've heard women like cry to me and be like, I'm always working. I feel like, and I've made more money this year. But that was because I had to punch the gas pedal because it's like, okay, we got big goals. And I have to be able to maintain where I'm at, be able to maintain where we want to be, and then maintain if we got to leave. So those are 3 times or 2 times more than what I have to think about because I can't just maintain. I just can't make enough. I have to make an abundance.
That's real. I mean, that's the reality, I think, for a lot of people. I mean, it really is. And so I totally get that. And everything is becoming more expensive right now. Like everything. You go to a restaurant and you got to pay a 20% service charge for something. And you like, I don't know these people. like, why am I paying all these people? Right. Like everything is more expensive. So I totally get it. So we understand like the reasons, why you're leaving. Do you have a timeline for yourself? And then, with your daughter, right? High school, she's in high school now or going into, so what is that like, right? Like for her.
So obviously she was resistant because my daughter is on the varsity cheer team. She's a sophomore this year. So she's, I'm the it girl, and so, and so of course, socially, she's like, do we have like really mommy? Like, so is that, but then also too, I think she's starting to see a little bit because they talk about it at school. Like it's like people that she goes to a multicultural school as well. And she has classmates that go overseas and they stay the whole summer. So she's listening and she's like, mommy, I think I kind of see what you're saying. But the still resistance is leaving the culture here and going over to a brand new, which obviously is my fear too. But I also believe that wherever we're supposed to be there. And it's going to be a beautiful transition. It's not going to be hard for us because anytime we have had to transition, like move, because we lived in Texas for 10 years, and she just blended in just fine here. So, that's kind of where we're at. And I'm still talking to her, but I think we want to go visit. We're going to do spring break.
I was about to ask you that. Yeah.
We're going to do spring break, and then we're going to do next summer, probably if we like it, we're going to do 2 months.
Okay.
With a visa, visa thing. And then if we really like it, we just gonna, see what's up.
Okay. So are you looking like after like high school, like once she graduates, then,
Yeah, I think anything permanent is going to be after high school. Because number one, I want to see where she was going to go to school, and make sure we figure out the logistics there. But for me, for sure, once I get her settled in life, then I'm gone.
So I love this because you can see like how to do it right with a child and like, listen, you just gonna fit into my world. And then we also see like, listen, we gotta wait, get this going, but then also making that plan right, for yourself in the meantime, not waiting, but planning it out now. How are you preparing yourself and her for that change?
So we're looking at like pictures, like Instagram accounts that are about, Portugal, and she said that she really wants to visit Dominican Republic, which is why the DR is on the table too. So we're looking at different accounts, and then also I'm in some Facebook groups, expat groups, that talks about living abroad in those particular places, and we just kind of talk about it and mention it. But of course, there's still resistance because she has a really tight friend circle. They're really sweet kids. So I think that's also a part of it. But we're definitely having dialogue around it.
I love it. I love it. And I think that it's like either way works, right? It's really about like what works best for you.
Yes.
There's no, I think there's no really right, wrong, or way to do this. Cha, for you, so obviously it's easier in a sense with a 4-year-old, right? But you said, like, so you came back to America and had him and then left again. Was there any part of you that said, you know what, now that I've had a child, I'll stay home, I'll just stay here, I'll make it work here? Or was that always the plan that, once you were ready, you were just going to go back and move somewhere else?
Well, I always wanted to, first of all, I never wanted to come back. I came back, I was in a head-on collision. So that kind of changed the trajectory. I then went back because I had a whole life of car and all kinds of stuff in Korea. But I ended up being here for way longer than I thought I would be. Then I met someone. We started to have a family. I was in a relationship. And then that relationship, the dynamics of the relationship started looking like something I didn't want to participate in. And I'm a real honest and transparent person. So I just started having conversations like, are you willing to go beyond where you are currently? And that person was not. They would say that they were, but then they had never really been anywhere other than, I think they had went to the DR and they went to like Cabo or somewhere. And so I started having those conversations. But when the relationship started looking like it was going real south, I was like, okay, here's my plan. So I took my son, we went to visit Mexico. I had went earlier that year on vacation. And then I was like looking around. I was like, you know what? I might be able to do this. And that was still in 2020. So the pandemic was still in effect. I came back. I put in place my plan. I spoke to the partner and he didn't seem like he was about to change nothing. So I was like, you know what? I can show you better than I can tell you who I really am. So I then started my plan to move. And I showed up. I had already applied for my visa. So I am a resident of Mexico. And I came back, packed up all my stuff, put the things I wanted in like a tiny store. It was like $35. It was like a little box. Sold everything, and then we moved. And I haven't really looked back. There were times that I wanted to stay to build the relationship between my son and his father. But at the end of the day, it was like these two people can go off and live their own life. And if I don't ever live mine, then I forsake myself for these two individuals. If I die tomorrow, they're going to just be happy, So what happens if I don't live, if I don't show up for me? And so I was like, you know what? Choices have to be made. And there are people who were like, well, that's so wrong. You taking him from, no. He had options. I'm not taking anybody from anywhere. I gave him the option. Do you want to come? I asked him, originally I was going to be gone for 6 months. Nothing changed. You weren't doing the work. So you obviously didn't want the relationship. Here, your child is going to always be your child. I will make the provisions for your child to be in your life and for you to be in. But if you don't do the work, I still got to live my life because I'm accountable for me. I'm also accountable for this child because I asked for it. I sat down. I made a plan for it. I made preparations. I was all in. When I jumped 2 feet in. And at the end of the day, I know what I signed up for.
Mhm.
Now, if you didn't do that on your end, that's between you and your God. I don't have nothing to do with that. And so it has been a long time coming of me sitting back and reevaluating, like, who am I? Who am I as a mother? Who am I as a person? Who am I as a businesswoman? Who am I as a spiritual being who signed up for this life experience? I've asked all the questions, right? And I even at points like had that, oh, but I'm doing it wrong, but there was no manual. Nobody gave me a manual on how to be a mother, how to show up in this world, how to do it. I'm writing the script as I go. And so I had to be very clear about what my intentions were. And all of this was already written out. I had already written this out before this person showed up. I told this person who I was. And I remember saying, well, I told you this is who I was. And he was like, I thought you would change. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's probably the number one thing I hear in couples counseling. Oh, I just thought they would change.
I was like, how do you think I'm going to change as a person? Did you even ask me if I wanted to change? That's my decision.
They don't care.
So and so therefore, like, I had to take the guilt away from me of how I was showing up, because I was making provisions for people and trying to fill the gap. And it became a burden for me because I'm not responsible for other people. So I had to tell myself, hold on, you're responsible. Your sole responsibility is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then, so God first, me, this child, we gotta go down the line. So at the end of the day, if I don't show up for me, I can't show up for them. So I had to be very clear about that. And so that made some shifts. It got harder because I done had all kinds of stuff this year that I'm like, are you kidding me? I even had people I knew were like, you wrong for this. Not how so?
I was actually going to ask you about that. Like, what about your family? Like, you know, I know his father, right? But what about your family? Like, have they had anything to say about it? Or, you know, did they have problems with you leaving, you know, with their, you know, grandchild? Or I don't know if you have siblings, you know, their nephew.
I think my family is very clear about who I am. There were some that was like, okay, but are you going to consider this? And are you going to do this? And I'm like, I can consider anything. My plans are going to change based on who I'm dealing with, how I'm dealing with them. But I'm me for real. Like, I'm clear about that. Like, the Taurus in me is not, there's no go. I'm sorry. I made a decision. You weren't part of that. I considered you in the plans. You negated to follow through. Okay, I got to keep it moving. And again, I'm still a woman. I'm still a whole person with a heart. And I have, you know, vacillated and gone back and forth about how I'm moving. But at the end of the day, what I'm going to do is really based on who I want to be and how I'm supposed to show up in life. And anything else than that, I'm not being authentic, and that don't roll with me, right? So I've had people be like, well, you're wrong. According to who? I'm not living your life. You should go live yours. Don't worry about what we doing, because unless you got some money on this, I really don't care. At the end of the day, that's just how I'm gonna roll.
And that's going to happen. And speaking of that, Jay, so right, so you know, we were saying that that's happening with your family, like your father, right, is not necessarily on board with this plan. What's, you know, how does your father feel about it, and what's some of his reservations?
The father of the child.
Got it.
Oh, because I don't care. So no, so I'm trying to make sure I choose my words correctly. So I was married to my child's father years ago. My daughter was actually 1.5 when we divorced.
Okay.
So she never had memories of us together. So
Okay.
she only saw wedding photos, and that's it. So you know, so she became a teen, and you know, somehow the relationship kind of, there's a little strain, but I'm hoping that one of these days that things will come back together for both of them. But my whole point is, like, I don't care what he says.
Mhm.
So I quit co-parenting a long time ago. Like, I was like, I'm not doing this no more. Like, I'm just not. And so I have taken, like, I think people don't understand, like, you don't have time to co-parent like that. Like, if this person is not like helping or contributing
Mhm.
and providing the assistance to help, it's a no deal. Like, I don't consider you in anything. I just don't. I will just wait till the appropriate age for her to whatever, to make her own decisions. But my job is still to be a mother and to still give her a very beautiful teenage experience, give her a great environment. So I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part, and I'm going to let whatever speak for me on that end. I do not speak negative about him to her or anything like that. So as far as the abroad thing, we are going to wait till she's 16 because according to the government regulations and things like that, you can have one parent to sign for your passport. Passport, I believe, would be good for 5 years or something like that. But if now we would have to have both. And so my daughter wanted to wait until she was 16 for that reason, so that she could just be one parent. I just think that Black women, and I think that that's one of the issues too, is that Black women, because we have a bigger number of single mothers in our community, or single, I like to call it single women with children.
Mhm.
You know, because of that ratio, I think it's a little bit strained to have like these conversations with our children, and then the fathers of these children,
Mhm.
because a lot of them are going to want to leave, and they got 3, 4, 5 children, and it's like the logistics of it all, the costs. And if you don't have like working on your mindset as far as abundance, as far as this man gonna do what I tell him to do, like, look, metaphysically, you got to start doing whatever little mind stuff you need to do to make sure, like, and I think that sometimes everybody's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be probably one of the biggest challenges that a lot of Black women are going to have. Like, how do I get out of here knowing I got this man or whoever that's giving me so much resistance, and I got small kids, So I hate that.
But thanks for that tidbit, because I didn't realize at 16 you only needed one signature. I was aware, obviously, for a passport you need both, but I didn't know that changed at 16. So I don't know how many of our viewers knew that, who might be in similar situations where you do have children, you are single parents, right? And you are responsible, and you maybe have, the father, who really isn't on board, and you have to navigate those waters as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a real thing. So, Cha, for you, like, how was it in terms of, even though he's not the partner, right, that you needed or wanted him to be, how was that process in saying, listen, I'm gonna take your baby abroad,
Well, no, I sat down, had a conversation. I was like, this is what I want to do. And at that time, I had some business aspirations, and I was gonna partner with a friend of mine. The situation didn't actually worked out when we got to Mexico. However, I had a 6-month plan. So he signed the letter. He signed the passport. He already had a passport prior to, because we had already went to Mexico, just me and my son. So the problem was when I didn't come back.
Okay.
Was like, well, I'm gonna take you to court, and it. But so for me, he still wanted to be in a relationship, right? Again, I had like, here are my things I need, and you're not doing the work to establish us being in a healthy relationship that I want to present to my child. So for me, it was a little bit different. Like, when I originally left, we still were in a relationship, and then things started to dissolve. And then I decided I'm not going back to that. And so I kept moving. Now, in the interim, I had decided earlier last year that I would try to make provisions, and that's when everything went awry. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing all of this and this. Nah, we not doing that. You making my life harder. So he's tried to take me to court. But so this is one thing that people should know. So when you have a custody battle, the custody goes to the person who has the child, and wherever that person has lived for the last 6 months is then where you need to begin fighting. So I had lived 2 years in Mexico, and you came up with this fight. Well, jurisdiction goes to me, boo. So at the end of the day, you got to come fight me in Mexico. So I have residency up until 2025. So, and after that, I can have permanent residency. So I've done my work. I wasn't trying to be malicious, but I tried to meet you halfway. Every time my child has come to America, I foot that bill. I showed up and brought you your child. And so at the end of the day, I don't feel like I owe you anything because I'm footing this bill. You not coming to get him. You not paying half on the baby or none of that. You're not doing anything.
Not even coming to Mexico to visit.
He's come to Mexico to visit.
Okay.
But he hasn't made provisions for you. So he brought to me like, I want every other month. Can you afford every other month? Who is buying these plane tickets? She not sending your child. And last year I had a contract where I worked in Philadelphia. So I had to do conferences, and I brought my child I paid for my ticket. The company paid for, the company paid for my ticket. I paid for my son.
You pay for his.
And everything, all the accommodations was paid for. I'm paying for 2 hotels so that you can see your child. They're not doing that because you're trying to make me out to all the world that I'm trying to keep your child from you. No, I can afford for you to see your child. You can't afford to see your child. Now, if you can't afford to see your child, you think I'm about to put the bill for you to see your child? I want him to see you, but I don't want to pay for you to see him. It's not that deep for me. I want you to have a relationship. And if you come to me with a plan and some procedures and how we can move forward so that you can be a part of his life, absolutely, I can do that. But I'm not footing the bill for you to do that. I don't know where she is, but you should find her. And I'm not doing it. I'm not built that way. Like I'm not paying the bills for people. Sorry.
Oh boy.
That's where the confusion came from. And I was like, and I'm probably a little bit smarter than you because again, I didn't sign up for this and go like, oh, let me do this and move like this. But this is how it's been set up. And so if you come to me and now you want to bring a fight, when I even came to you with a whole parenting plan with everything outlined, and all I'm asking you to do is give me full custody, which I already have. I got that by default. I'm the mother. Now we can share joint custody if it works in a way that makes good sense. But then you decided, oh, well, you should put the bill for him coming. I'll put the bill for him going back. Why put the bill for him every day? He eat because I serve him. You know what I'm saying? I make a way. You're not paying none of these bills over here. You're not even paying, I don't know, child support order. So I think for me, it was just about not having the right co-parents. I have a person who wants to be involved, but he can only be involved to a certain degree, right? Because then, and I get it, it's expensive if you trying to co-parent across borders, right? It's not
just expensive regardless to have children. How about that? So you don't matter where they are.
You have to plan differently. Okay, my child is living over here. I know I need to be able to buy a plane ticket. You didn't have those plans and those provisions made. And so at this particular point, I honestly don't care because I want you to have a part in his life and you talk to him every day video. But if you want to move differently, you're going to have to financially move differently. And that's your problem, not mine.
It's interesting, right? Because there's a lot of people, not a lot, but there's gonna be some people who watch this and be like, that's completely unfair, right? But I totally understand that. Like I said, children are expensive. And when you are paying all the money for the kid and not getting the support, that's your kid. You making the decisions. It doesn't make sense to consider somebody who's not considering them. And that's the reality.
Wait a minute. How you read?
That was good.
Say that one more time, please.
That was good.
It doesn't make sense to consider somebody who is not considering them.
And that is because I'm a mediator by nature. I am a very considerate person. I do unto others as I want done to me. I don't move funny. When you see me, right? I don't have no representative. What do you need? If you came to me and said, listen, I can't really afford that. This is what I can afford. See, because I don't care about the child support. I have to support him regardless. I don't care if you send no money, because that money don't make nor break me, because I'm gonna have to take care. Just like I'm gonna have to eat regardless, he gonna have to eat regardless. So at the end of the day, if you came to me and said, well, I can't pay this amount, but so that we can have a better relationship and I can take care of my child, how about I buy these plane tickets, I'll put this money in reserve, and then I'll move like this. Okay, I'm that person, because it's about the relationship with you and your child that I care about. And can you sustain that? But if you borrowing, stealing, and robbing from Paul, Peter, and whomever, just so that you can make that, you're not even being a parent. You're not being responsible for yourself, let alone, and I'm not knocking him, but I think, because there have been men who came to me and was like, "Child, you really wrong for this. Show me. I got receipts, because we can go ahead and compare apples to apples." And there was moments where I wasn't making a dime, and I was hustling to make sure
made away.
Because in COVID,
because they don't want to. They just don't want to. They don't want to.
Ooh, this is a whole, there's so many topics going around in my head that I'm just like, oh my goodness.
And I'm looking at the time like, oh my goodness gracious.
But I know, but Jessica, you can relate, because as a mother, right, it's like the burden is on you regardless. And I think that's so interesting. And I'm not saying that men are not like this, but
no, but this deserves a part too.
Because I'm in a relationship with a man who is like that. But it's really sad when the burden is on the mom. Like, I got to make this work, where, the man is like, I don't have that same fire. I have to make this work. And that's a whole different topic. Like, that's a whole topic.
We would like to thank you for watching this episode of Black Women Leave America. Join us in part 2 of Black Women Leave America.
Listen,
with Ty and Jay.
Mother's doing it, okay? No, but I definitely want to, get your last thoughts. Yeah, I know
yes.
time.
Yes.
But last thoughts, Jay, like, what are your final thoughts? I do want to commend you both, because you, as single mothers, right, finding a way to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're taking care of your child, and really trying to figure out the best way to live your life that's going to work for both of you, that you both can flourish, right, and thrive. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Final thoughts.
So I'm one of those people that say that you can control your own reality. You can control what you can control. And if it's in your destiny for you to be wherever it is that you want to be, it will happen the way it's supposed to happen. Anybody that thinks that your idea, your vision is crazy, you didn't consider this person, that's not right. Those individuals had their opportunity. They didn't take the opportunity, but I have to take mine. So I only have this life. We only have this life that we know of. And I believe in living to the fullest. Take chances while you still can. That's it.
That's it. I love it. Thank you, Miss Cha.
I can say a lot. No, but I agree wholeheartedly. I think that, this is your only opportunity to make this your best life. Again, like Jay said, nothing is promised. Tomorrow is not promised. And unfortunately, certain things don't work out, right? When you have children. And I mean, I guess there are people who come into the world, like my child was playing. There was we sat down, had a conversation about how we were moving forward in life. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. So you can plan the plan. If God's plan is different, then you got to roll with whatever God brings to you, or spirit, or whatever, however you believe. For me, I think if I could leave any words of encouragement for any mother or woman that is just, on the fence of how do I make this happen, it's like manifestation. You have to see it. You have to believe it. You have to move forward in it. And all else is going to work out. In the universe, if anybody hasn't read The Alchemist, go read The Alchemist. It takes like 48 hours to read the book. The book is really long.
Not even.
Right. I did it 20 So literally, the universe will start to conspire with you. Once you put it out there, speak it first, write it, see it, and move in it, and everything will start to show up for you if that's the plan. And sometimes that plan doesn't work out like you had the plan for it to work out. However, everything will continue to start moving forward towards you, and you just have to be willing to keep moving and be flexible and go with the plan. So if you're ready to do it, just put a plan together and move in that. And if it's a person that's preventing it, I can visually move you out. Like prayers, like we can write it, burn it, keep it moving, and you'll wake up and be on board with me. We good. And so, and that has happened. I was like, I'm not going to court. We're gonna do this, and this is how we're gonna move forward. So I think if you are a single mom, don't let things stop you. Have conversations if you can. If you can't have conversations, baby, the internet's your friend. Figure out how this move can be in your favor, and how you can move according to how you want to move based off of the things you need to do. And if it means wait till you 16, okay, keep working the plan until the plan can work for itself. But in the meantime, there are so many things. There's loopholes. You just got to go be willing to do the work and figure it out. And if you don't have a father on a birth certificate, and yet y'all still commingling and whatever, and you still letting this person interfere, boo, you don't want to go. Because if he ain't on the birth certificate, you can move freely. Do you? So those are my words of encouragement. Don't let nobody stop.
She done put y'all on game. Okay. She just put y'all on game. Like
I'm just saying.
Ooh, I love this show because I swear, like sometimes Jessica and I will be like, oh, we're going to talk about this. And the conversation turns one way and we're like, oh, no, we're no longer talking about this. This is now what we're talking about. I love how that works out. Like, and I just totally believe like it always is what's needed. Right. And so this is for you single mothers out there. Right. This is for you single men, because it's not just women, it's men too. This is for you single men. I'm in a relationship like that. I've seen it on the other end as well. And so how to move, how to navigate, how to still live your life, how to live your best life when you are the one who are responsible for these children and making the decisions, right? In all ways. And it is a job and a half. I mean, it's a lot. So I commend you all. I look forward to your feedback, the positive comments. I look forward to your comments. I look forward to your questions. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to our amazing guests for sharing your journeys. Jessica done already said this is part 1, so that means we need to have a part 2. So we look forward
definitely.
Jessica, any final thoughts?
No, not at all. Thank you so much, ladies, to our guests who have come today and shared your time. We appreciate you. We will be booking part 2, so be on the lookout for that. But thank you all so much for watching. Make sure that you go ahead and leave any comments or questions that you have down in the comment section. We will be monitoring the comment section, and we'll also ask of our guests those questions. So if you have any questions for both Chai or Jay, please leave those questions down below and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Black Women Leave America. Bye.
Bye.